set of flare nut wrenches will be very handy. Beware of some of the potential hazards. Typically, 2 countersunk bolts hold the drum in place. The hand impact tool will help remove those fasteners if they are stubborn. Sometimes brake shoes will be seized against the drum, necessitating the use of a 2-jaw puller. Once you remove the brake drums, I like to clean them up and paint them after they were taken to the machine shop for turning. This is a special tool which is used to remove the keepers that hold the spring and the clips for the brake shoes. PB Blaster is helpful for stubborn fasteners such as these brake lines which I replaced. Here's where you need the special flare nut wrench. I like to be able to catch all the debris. Note that the spring on the top is in the wrong position. Removing the clip that holds the parking brake in place. Removing the brake shoes. This is the arrangement of the springs. The flare nut wrench will give you a better bite. Removing the brake line from the wheel cylinder. Parking brake attachment. Remove the cotter pin and then the upper pin. There's the cotter pin being removed and the upper pin that I referred to. Now the protective boot can be removed. The clips on the back side, and then the wheel cylinder extracted. Parking brake actuator. Had to use my cutoff tool to remove the frozen brake line. It was welded, rusted shut. And when a wrench slipped, accidents happen. There's the brake line, which is going to be replaced. After cleaning, install the new wheel cylinder. Had a little difficulty getting it to fit, which necessitated grinding. Here's the problem with this cheap Chinese shit. They don't know how to make castings. These are basically lost wax process. You can see this is where the metal was flowing through the casting. I used to sell these things, so I know what I'm talking about. Long story short, whatever this aluminum alloy is, The Chinese can't seem to figure out shrink rates because they make their parts either over or undersized, or their tolerances suck. Long story short, this thing was a little bit tough going in, so I thought, okay, I'd tap it in, but then I realized I needed to put the parking brake mechanism in first. And this was a son of a gun to get out. And as it is right now a little bit, you can see where this, here on the top where it was rubbing, and on the bottom as well. And now one could simply go in here and elongate this a little bit, but that shouldn't be, because these were made from the factory properly in England, you know, decades ago. But the Chinese can't seem to figure out, or they just don't seem to simply give a damn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this on my grinder and just slightly kiss this end and this end down here. But again, this is why you should always insist on any parts but China. ABC. What I had done was I went on a grinder and I just gently kissed each of these sides. Probably only took off a thousandth or two, if that. I mean, just a little bit. And we'll see if it fits. Look at that. See? That's the way it's supposed to fit. It's supposed to be able to go in and out easily. The Chinese can't seem to figure that out. So working on the left rear wheel, this goes in first, and then you have to slide this forward like so. This area back here is where it's going to trap that pin. It's going to go in like that. That pin's going to go in like so. And then the whole mechanism goes in. And the pin is now properly trapped in there. Now we put the two keepers, this piece on first in that direction, this piece on second. These two tabs will lock onto those two tabs there. Is holding the wheel cylinder in, and you can see I have this clip in place. There's a groove that it fits into back there, and it goes in like that. While you're holding the wheel cylinder with your left thumb, your right hand will then take and push this in until those two tabs lock on to the two corresponding male pieces. Remember, those two locking plates have to be in the groove inside the wheel cylinder, because that's what's going to be basically holding it tight up against the backing plate. And then you should be able to move this back and forth like that a little bit, and it not go anywhere. It should be staying in position. Once you've done that, you take the dust cover, the little boot here, slide it over the parking brake pawl, I guess you call it. I'm not sure exactly what that's called. And then this will go like that all the way around and lock. It takes two hands. I'm going to put the phone or camera down. So you have the parking brake actuator here. Everything is nice and tight, and you can see that the boot is on nice and tight, and it's covering the locking tabs as well. While you're in here, here's the adjusting mechanism. This piece should be free. What I like to do is this should come out by hand, like so. I like to take this and clean it out real good and put some additional high temperature grease in there. Same thing for the other side. If I can, there it is. Sometimes if you take your finger, you can push it through this direction. And here's the other side. You can see this groove is where the brake shoe is going to locate. You always be wearing safety glasses because this solvent is nasty stuff. Remove the adjuster spray a liberal amount of cleaner in there. I like to take a Q-tip in here and just make sure that this is all as clean as possible. Removing any traces of any old grease, dirt, things of that nature. That's not too bad. Maybe it'll clean my ears a bit later on. Now the British are calling these tappets. That's item number 3. There's one on each side. And you notice the orientation appears as if it's supposed to go in with the longer end facing outward. And this oriented like that. See how that's like that? And I've got, so it's going to have to, this will be the rear one, and then the front one will go on in this manner. Of course, I need to put some grease on. So we will cover this later, but basically for the rear brake adjustment, it's a small square-headed adjuster. That's what they're calling it. And it's on the back side, on the inside of the back plate. And they're easily adjusted. Supposedly you just take a square-headed brake adjusting spanner, if possible. Sometimes you can get away with just using a pair of needle nose or something. But basically you turn it, and as it's making, you adjust one notch at a time until the brakes are not binding. According to the instructions, it's actually called a small square-headed adjuster, and it's on the inside of the brake back plate. Use this ordinary spanner if possible, or a square-headed brake tool. Basically, you're going to rotate it and tighten up, take up the slack, ensuring that the brake shoes are not binding. Here's the picture that the book shows. Basically what you're doing is you're putting pliers on like that. You're putting push towards the differential, push towards the center, and then as you're pushing in, rotate it 90 degrees, and you'll see that the little tabs here will lock into place. Make the mistake I made by putting the springs in this orientation for the left rear wheel. The springs are actually supposed to go on the back side of the shoe, so I'll redo it here and show you in a second. I've gone ahead and retrofitted the old spring, pin, and keeper mechanism, which is far superior to that crap. The problem I was having was the new style pin does not have a perpendicular means of locking onto the metal stamping that holds the spring in place. If you notice, it looks like it's got about a 60-degree taper instead of a nice 90-degree. So I went ahead and started measuring everything, outside diameters and spring length, spring diameters. The replacement ones were smaller, and if they were engineered to work well together, that's fine. But what I did notice was that the thickness of the retaining plate was significantly less, which is why the part simply pulled through. Always know the country of origin. Don't forget to install the cotter pin to lock the parking brake. Of course, then this will also have to go back in place with the proper pin and locking cotter pin as well.